And then she was like, well, you should know I got a lot of pain in my heart. And I was just like, okay, we're gonna do it. I was about to call it quits. I was like, all right, God, today's not the day. I'll go and try again tomorrow. And then I hear this woman go like,
Ruslan.
I stumbled across one of your videos. I think somebody sent it to me on Instagram, and it was you sitting down with a lady on your stoop and just loving her and telling her about Jesus.
mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, this is like one of the coolest things I've seen in the way you had that conversation and the way you extended grace and mercy and empathy and listened to her and just let her talk. And I was like, this is beautiful. It was really beautiful. It really touched me. I reacted to it. I don't know if I reached out. I think I reached out to you and just kind of encouraged you. And then it just worked out that you're in town and we could do this.
Yeah. It's funny because that conversation happened a year ago and that video.
And what was that young lady's name?
Her name is Frankie.
Shout out to Frankie.
Yeah. And so that all happened a year ago, posted the video a year ago, and it was kind of fine. Didn't really get too much. But then since then, I've kind of grown. And so then I reposted it with a follow-up interview I did with her a year later. And then that repost has gotten some traction on the internet. So it was interesting because I was like, I remember when I first filmed it, I was like, man, this was a really special moment, right? So, you know, I just interviewed, I sit outside my stoop in New York City, and as people walk by, excuse me, hey, do you have a couple minutes to chat? About what? I'm like, I just kind of like interview people and get their stories. Okay. And so that day I had probably gone through like 20 people walked by and everyone said no, or everyone was like busy, was super in a rush. It's New York, right? And I was about to call it quits. I was like, all right, God, today's not the day. I'll go and try again tomorrow. And then I hear this woman go like, she was looking for a place to smoke her joint, and she was just walking around, and she was like, oh, there's a Buddhist center right next to me. And she's like, oh, that's a Buddhist center. It doesn't look like a good place to smoke a joint. And I was like, well, you can just smoke on my stoop if you want.
Hello.
But you're going to have to like be in my YouTube video. And she's like, okay. And she's like, what is it about? I'm like, it's just about you.
Yeah.
And then she was like, well, you should know I got a lot of pain in my heart. And I was just like, okay, we're gonna do it. And just pretty much right off the bat, just jumped into her story. And yeah, it was crazy.
And where'd you get this format from? Because it almost and this is not in any ways a bad comparison, but it reminds me of Soft White Underbelly a bit, where you're just sitting down with people and just getting their raw story. How did you get this idea of just putting a camera out in New York City on your stoop and just talking to people?
I'm trying to think of a better answer for this, because the initial answer that comes to me is I'm not sure. I knew I wanted to make videos. I love making videos, like putting stuff together. And I was like, okay, the type of content I can make, I'm not the type who can kind of like similar to you, just like voice off opinions or vlogs or like get ready with me today. So I'm like, okay, I need content. I need to tell stories. How do I find stories? And I was like, oh, wait, well, I got to find them in other people. And I did kind of discover that I have an ability to kind of talk with people and different people and kind of uncover their stories. So it just kind of started from there. And in terms of like it being on my stoop, and I guess I just wanted to make it as casual as possible, but also like be in the city and just make it as raw and real, and just like it's not a big deal, but also like let's get really deep at the same time if we can.
Yeah. It has a great aesthetic and feel to it, and then a rawness to it. Is the camera just like on a tripod? And
it's
then
2 tripods,
just 2 tripods, and you just set them out right on the street, or like
it's on the sidewalk,
and no one trips.
It's New York, man. No one cares.
Wow.
Like some people will walk by and be like, "What's going on?" But no one's ever been like watching us or like taking. Everyone's just like, "Yeah, That's the beautiful thing about New York. You can do whatever you want to do."
Hey, you want to see something kind of crazy? Over 75% of the people that watch this channel are not subscribed. Please consider subscribing and turning your bell notification on so that you don't miss anything we have going here.
You're originally not from New York.
I'm originally from the Bay, Cupertino.
Shout out to all the West Coast.
Bay Area, yeah. Got a lot of
area.
A lot of pride in there. But I moved to New York about 6 years ago in the midst of a soul-searching journey of sorts. And I moved to New York. I was like, I need to figure out like myself and my life, and I would have never expected that I'd be like at this exact moment right here, like in your garage talking about my videos that I make, and I'm a content creator now. Like I am like a CPA, MBA. My full-time job is in business and accounting and finance. You know, like I do financial forecasting and planning and budgeting reporting. Like that was kind of my career path. But then once I moved to New York, it just God had different plans.
You left the Bay, going to New York, out of this messy breakup.
Yeah.
And you said you had heard that there were hot girls in New York. Is that correct?
And I can confirm that it's true.
I mean,
Those San Diego, having been here for 2 days, like
just sheer volume though. I mean, it's just population.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Just bigger population.
And density.
Greater odds of attractive
Yes,
people being
yes,
around.
Yes.
And then you get to New York, and then that's how you discover Jesus and get saved.
Yeah, I mean, I was Christian beforehand, but I would say like a lukewarm Christian. It wasn't until I moved to New York and kind of joined a church.
Okay.
And I was like, that was really when the soil began to really be formed. I think like there was a lot of like, what was the parable of the four soils? There's a lot of weeds and rocky dirt and all that stuff. So moving to New York was when all of that began to kind of just, God began to pave the way. So joining a church was like, oh, this is what Christians are like. Like they could be normal people, and and then learning about the Christian worldview, the Christian story, and kind of all those things kind of coming together, and at the same time going through a lot of deep cleaning up, deep inner work, healing, sanctification, all that stuff. And out of all of these things, like, I moved to New York looking for romance, looking for love, looking to heal like my broken heart from this relationship. And I got those things, but not in the way that I had thought. I didn't even know what the problem was, right? Because I thought I was just like, man, I need to find a job that like I'm passionate about, and like I need to find a woman who will love me and whatever. And these are the things that will make me happy. And they are good things. But like, it was moving to New York, being in this raw survival of the fittest type city. Like, I feel like that just kind of set the soil for me to find God in a authentic way.
Yeah, most of my friends who move to New York walk away from God.
I was afraid of that. Yeah.
They drift, man. It's like the drift capital of the world.
There was some drifting in the first couple of years, but he pulled me back in.
How did that happen? How did he pull you back in? You said you got just plugged into a church. Like what was the sequence of going to New York? So it's a little bit of drift happened, and then all of a sudden God pulls you back in.
I think God does what he wants to do. It's kind of like Jonah, like you can keep running, but if he wants you, he's going to get you. But certainly, I think at the core of it was just there's a desperation on my end. Like, so this breakup was kind of like a near-death experience for me. It kind of woke me up.
Okay.
I kind of describe it as like a BC 80 moment. Like after that moment, I was like, oh, life isn't all just like fairy tales and rose-colored glasses. Like this is life or death, and if I want to make something of myself, like this is the time to do it. And I was like, 27, 29 at the time. So I think what it was just a constant desperation, and I still kind of have it of like, of honestly realizing and believing that I do need God. Because in the past, before that, it was just like, oh, I believe in God, yeah, creator of the universe. I'll try to do good. But like actually wanting to do his will and be obedient, for a long time, I was like, nah, I'm good. I just want to do things my way. But nothing brings you back to God and desperate for God as much as pain does.
Yeah.
And so it was just like a lot of pain. I think since then it's just like, and I'm still constantly fighting between flesh and spirit, right, every day. But something changed whereby it was just like a willingness to be like, okay, God, yeah, like I really need you. And I think like that's what, even if I did drift, like go out and like club and get into promiscuity and, repeatedly make bad decisions. I was smoking a lot of pot at the time. I was like numbing through alcohol and women, all these things, right? I think a lot of people do. And it was just like, I wish I could be like, I was like good right off the bat, but it was, I don't know, it was just like two steps backward, 3 steps forward. And I can't, it's really hard to describe how God works in your life.
It sounds like it was more of a process.
It was definitely a process.
It wasn't like I remember I had this come to Jesus moment.
No, it was, it was many moments of him breaking me and tears, and then realizations, and then coming back, and then doing the thing that I wasn't supposed to be doing, and then coming back, and then,
Yeah.
Hey, this is a segment from our daily after party stream. Consider partnering with us online for as little as $5 a month to get access to these daily after party streams completely unedited. You'll also get access to our podcast as they are streamed live into the community before anyone else gets to see them, get to interact with our guests, get access to our private Discord server, and a discount code for our store for as little as $5 a month. Ultimately, that will help towards helping us continue contextualizing the gospel using media and podcast here on YouTube. All right, I'll see you over there. Peace.